Attention women's health professionals, the next round of FAMM is just around the corner. Classes start on October 4th. FAMM is the perfect program for busy women's health professionals who want to offer fertility awareness charting support in their practice. FAMM cuts out all the fluff and only focuses on what you need to serve your clients better. Each module, homework assignment, in-class training, and chart review session is there for a reason. Where will you be 9 months from now? With a FAMM certification, you'll have a brand new skill set that will allow you to use the menstrual cycle as a diagnostic tool and vital sign in your practice. Your confidence in analyzing and interpreting menstrual cycle charts will be at a level you can't even imagine today. And you'll have a brand new offering in your business that will allow you to reach more clients. This knowledge is truly life-changing. Transform your practice in 9 months. You won't regret it. Join us this October in FAMM. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive to apply today. That's fertilityfriday.com/FAMMLIVE. This is the Fertility Friday podcast, episode number 488. Today I'm sharing another brand new episode in my FAMM Practitioner series. I'm sharing my recent interview with Nora Debora. And today we're jumping into the topic of gut health. And as a graduate of the FAMM program, towards the end of the episode, Nora shares some of the most valuable insights that she gained from the program that she's been able to share with her clients and the difference it's made in her practice. Before we jump into today's episode, I'll share a little bit about Nora. Nora Debora is a preconception health coach, holistic nutritionist, and fertility awareness practitioner who helps women prepare for pregnancy and have a healthy baby after 30. Through her signature program, Master Your Cycle to Get Pregnant, she teaches women how to optimize their hormones and fertility by harnessing the power of their menstrual cycle with targeted nutrition, cycle charting, and self-care practices. When she's not coaching, you can find her indulging in gourmet burgers, sweating in yoga class, or on long hikes with her husky. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode with Nora. And I'm excited to be here once again with Nora Debora. Nora was a past FAMM participant, and today we are chatting a lot about gut health. So welcome to the show, Nora.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming back. I'd love to start, maybe introduce yourself, share a little bit about what you do, and also tell us just a little bit about how you incorporated the FAMM into what you do. I feel like tell us all the things about what you do.
Yeah. So I am a holistic nutritionist. I'm a preconception health coach and a fertility awareness practitioner that obviously I learned from Lisa. I did my certification with her. What was it now? 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago? So. 2.5 years, something like that. A little while ago. Yeah. And so I came into the fertility space about 4 years ago. Prior to that, in my practice, I mainly focused on gut health. I worked with kids, men, women, all of the above. But as I moved into my mid-30s, I've always desired to be a mom, and I didn't have a partner. And so I was looking into, well, what can I do for my body to optimize my health and fertility as naturally as I can, so that when and if that time does come for me, I'm in the best spot possible. Because I think a lot of us who maybe have gone to the doctor and have experienced this, a lot of the times the first reaction from a doctor is just to send you off to the fertility clinic. And there's so much that you can do to optimize your fertility and your health just from nutrition and lifestyle alone. So I thought, hey, I'm a practitioner. This is going to be easy for me. I dove into the research and then I was like, OMG, way too much information out there. I'm so confused. And that's when it was kind of like that light bulb moment for me to kind of niche into the fertility space. So that's how I got into the fertility space. And when I did that, I was looking for more certifications. I found Lisa and I thought, what a great program to help me kind of round out my skill set and help women optimize their health and bodies through the lens of the menstrual cycle. When I went to nutrition school, I thought, this is mind blowing. How am I a grown woman and I don't understand the basic functions of my body or the basics of nutrition? And now I kind of had the same moment when I started in your FAMM program in my like mid to late 30s. And I was like, how do I not know the menstrual cycle as deeply as I do now that I've come out of the program? So I think it's so important. Lisa, the work that you do is incredible, just educating and teaching women about, as you say, our fifth vital sign, right? Our menstrual cycle, using that as a fifth vital sign. So as a part of my practice now, helping women prepare and optimize their body for pregnancy, I use the cycle charting and the menstrual cycle as a very big tool to help us understand or figure out what's going on with the body so that they can ultimately get pregnant.
Well, let's talk about gut health and how it applies to fertility. I feel like in the fertility space, there are so many different areas of opportunity. I recently, well, depending on when this episode comes out, but recently, a few podcast episodes ago, I interviewed Mark Sklar and we talked about the concept of unexplained infertility.
Yes.
And that's an interesting kind of concept. I feel like it relates to what we're talking about today because so many women are not able to conceive and are basically given no roadmap as to why. And for many of these women, digestion is playing a huge role there. So maybe share with us a little bit about what you found in practice, how the gut health really, or how the health of the gut relates to fertility.
With regards to fertility, really, when you think about your whole digestion, which literally is not just your stomach or your small intestines, your entire digestive tract or your gastrointestinal tract, which is your gut, starts from your mouth, goes all the way to your anus. And it's all of the organs that are in between those two kind of end points that is really it's going to dictate the health of your overall digestion. Now, your gut is an organ in and of itself. And within that organ, you have a colony of bacteria, which is called your microbiome. And this microbiome as well is an organ in and of itself that we don't think about. All of the functions through the digestive tract happen through what's called our autonomic nervous system. This happens without us thinking. Our stomach kind of pulses our food, breaks it down, pushes it into the small intestines, where then our food then gets absorbed through the small intestines so it can go to the rest of our body, so we can use it for fuel, and then we have to excrete the waste. And the process happens multiple times per day, day in and day out. So when we think about eating healthy diet, if we're thinking we're going to prepare for pregnancy or we want to optimize fertility so that we can conceive naturally, we always think one of the first things we think about is, well, what are we going to eat? Okay, we want to eat all of the healthy foods to make sure that we're giving our bodies the fuel that we need and we're not eating the toxic inflammatory foods. But you could be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but if your digestion is compromised, you're not able to reap the benefits of the healthy foods that you're eating. Think about your digestive tract as, let's equate it to a car. You have to have a healthy engine in your car in order for that car to perform optimally. You want to give it like the high octane fuel. We want to give it the high octane food in our body. But then if those pipes are rusted, if there's holes in the pipes, then the engine isn't going to function properly. And that is the exact same thing with the human body. And we know that within the digestive tract, the gut is really the center of where our immune system develops. It is a big part of our hormone development and how all of our hormones communicate to each other in the body. So immune function, metabolism, a lot of these processes actually begin in the gut. That's a high level overview of how the gut is connected to fertility and really overall health.
Well, so let's go back to one of the things that you said, which was around whether or not you're digesting what you're eating. I think that's something that you don't always think about when you're making a point of eating. I mean, everyone has a different definition of healthy, but eating
Correct.
all of the healthy foods and doing all of this work. I think that that's one thing that can be, whether it's underestimated or overlooked, where you can actually be eating all of these things and taking all these supplements and not necessarily digesting it. So what would be some of the signs that we would look for to say, okay, there could be something wrong here?
First is bowel movements. Look at your poop, everyone. I love to talk about poop. I talk about poop with my clients all the time. I talk about it with family and friends. Sometimes when I'm on dates, I talk about poop. I know it can be a little awkward, but we need to normalize these conversations. It's important. So are you going to the bathroom? Are you pooping? Are you having a bowel movement at least 2 to 3 times a day? While it might be common for some people to have a bowel movement once, even every 2 to 3 days, I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, hey, Nora, I only poop, once every 2 days, but it's normal. I've always been like that. And it's like, it's not normal. It might be common for what you are dealing with, but it's not normal. If you want to get really kind of nerdy and geek out into this, Google something that's called the Bristol stool chart. And this Bristol stool chart is going to kind of give you type 1, 2, 3 through 6, all the different types of stool that you might have. And that's going to help you really identify. We typically want to be between like a type 3 or a type 4. It's kind of the more normal stool on the Bristol stool chart. But the first sign is just pooping.
Type 1 or 2.
Sorry,
I mean,
type
or whichever type it was.
Yes.
Can you
describe?
Describe it. Yeah. Because
Yes.
I'm guessing most of the listeners don't have the stool chart.
The stool chart. Yeah. So type 1 at the very top is the more constipated poop, where you're going to have these like small little like rabbit
Well,
pebbles.
maybe tell us what the normal one's supposed to look like.
Okay, let's go to the normal one. So if we kind of go down to type 3 or type 4, the type 3 or type 4 long sausage that comes out in one long S-shaped line.
Right. And you said 2 to 3 times a day. So are you saying that if somebody goes to the bathroom every single day, that's a problem, like once a day?
Everybody's body is individual. This is more of the general rule of thumb, but typically speaking, yeah, healthy 2 to 3 bowel movements a day is ideal. Maybe there's something smaller tweak that you do to kind of push that to do 2 bowel movements. Because if we think about poop, what is our poop actually comprised of? 4 things: bacteria. We'll talk about bacteria after. Toxins, fiber, and water. Those are the 4 components of stool. So a lot of the times, a lot of us are deficient in the fiber and the hydration, the water part. And so that alone could just back you up slightly and you don't even realize it. So you can add a little bit of fiber to your diet. So honestly, I see this a lot with my clients. Just the smallest little change there can make a big difference.
So we know that if we are not pooping enough, then that is a problem. What are some of the other signs that are there for us to pay attention to know if we potentially would have an issue with digestion?
So gas and bloating, I mean, after every meal, this is problematic as well. This is essentially the colony of bacteria that sits in your gut. You might have what's called dysbiosis. So we have that colony of bacteria in our gut. We have good bacteria and bad bacteria. We need both. We don't want to eradicate all the bad, and we definitely don't want to eradicate all the good. We need to have a healthy balance of both. And so a lot of the times when you are getting gas and bloating, what's happening is that bacteria is being fed maybe the wrong foods. A lot of people say, hey, I have bloating all the time. It's normal, Nora. It's nothing to worry about. Well, no, not necessarily. This might be common, but not normal. So gas and bloating is another big one. If you're seeing that on a daily basis. And then diarrhea is another common one. And at the same time, if you're looking in the toilet bowl, are you seeing undigested food particles? Because that in itself will also tell you that your body is not properly breaking down that food to assimilate what it needs. It's running through you much too quickly for your body to actually assimilate the nutrients.
As a women's health professional, you already know the value of tracking the menstrual cycle, but I'm guessing that you're not comfortable interpreting complex charts, weird mucus patterns, abnormal bleeding, or other similar situations. You're passionate about fertility awareness and want to use it in your practice, but you're just not sure where to start. That's where FAMM comes in. The next class of FAMM is just around the corner. Registration is now open for the Fertility Awareness Mastery Mentorship Program. Classes start on October 4th. By the time you finish your FAMM certification, you'll have the skills to confidently teach fertility awareness to your clients, interpret all kinds of complex charting scenarios, and you'll have the step-by-step protocols you need to help your clients improve their hormone and menstrual cycle health. Apply today at fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive. And when you apply, we'll send you the details to join one of our upcoming information sessions. Transform your practice in 9 months. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive. That's fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive. Now let's go ahead and jump back into today's episode. So these are some signs that we can pay attention to that would tell us our body is not digesting our food properly, that we're not necessarily getting the maximum amount of nutrition from our food, I should say. And obviously, if we're having lots of gas and bloating or a different situation when we have the constipation or we have the diarrhea or going back and forth, I mean, those are certainly signs to pay attention to. These are things that I've certainly seen with clients, and they can play out obviously in different ways with the menstrual cycle as well, which is really interesting. And I found that they can be related to a lot of things, even related to food sensitivities and things like that. I found that often people who have some of these overt symptoms also, sometimes they even have them related to some of the foods that they're eating. So maybe share a little bit about what you've seen, what is triggering these issues? Why are we seeing them? Are these issues that are standing, or are these issues related to food consumption or stress, or what have you seen that they're related to?
So two big ones. First one is food consumption. People not actually realizing the foods that they're sensitive to, like you said, Lisa, that they're eating. Like I said before, not eating enough fiber, eating too much of those inflammatory foods, or just not pairing food properly within each meal. In addition to that, I would say the food sensitivity piece. If you do a food sensitivity test and you see a whole bunch of food sensitivities on that test. This to me screams, hey, there might be some leaky gut. The small intestines, that's where essentially leaky gut happens in the body, right? When you eat food, you chew it in your mouth, it goes down the esophagus, dumps into the stomach, it gets blended in the stomach. And then from there, it's in its small enough component parts that it goes into the small intestines, where then it is assimilated through these small intestines and goes into the bloodstream. The small intestines has tiny little holes that it needs to have to be able to kind of pull those nutrients through and keep those larger, more toxic molecules in the gut so that it can be passed through the stool. But what happens is when somebody has leaky gut, think about that small intestines as being like a garden hose that has way too many big holes poked through it, that too much of those pathogens and kind of toxic big molecules will pass through the small intestines and get into the bloodstream, which is where you're actually doing the food sensitivity test from. So if somebody has high food sensitivity test, to me, I say, okay, well, what's actually going on with the gut? Do we have a little bit of leaky gut? And why is this leaky gut actually happening? There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Leaky gut can happen from too much stress. It can happen from taking too much antibiotics and medications, because we have, again, this colony of bacteria that lives inside the gut, the microbiome, and the good and bad bacteria need to have what's called a symbiotic relationship. You want to have a symbiosis in the gut. Even if you can shift the ratio of that bad to good bacteria, that in itself can create and cause the leaky gut. Stress alone can cause leaky gut. If you're eating too much inflammatory foods, cause leaky gut. Too much processed sugar, too much alcohol, all of this stuff can contribute to the leaky gut.
So you have a client who has some of these symptoms. In terms of leaky gut, you were saying that if a person tests on a food sensitivity test, and I mean, food sensitivity testing could be a topic of a whole podcast, because with food sensitivity testing, it's testing for your reactivity to certain things. And depending on what you're exposed to, what you're eating, like you mentioned, if your gut integrity is off and, a lot of different foods are being allowed into the bloodstream, you could test positive to a lot of things. But does that mean that it's a true food sensitivity? That's another question. So you're saying that, with regards to this sensitivity testing as also one of the signs, that kind of goes back to one of the signs of potentially that you have gut issues. Whenever I'm working with clients who have gut related issues, it depends on what the issue is. I've had a number of clients go through a variety of testing for different things. So one of the challenging things that I'm sure you found as well is when your client has these symptoms, they're kind of often non-specific. So you could have a variety of different underlying issues that could trigger similar symptoms. So if you're seeing whether it's bloating or issues with digestion, whatever the case is, some of the things that we've talked about before, it could be caused by a variety of things, from, underlying infections or overgrowth, like in the case of Candida, or whether it's something like an infection, a different type of infection, Epstein-Barr, like there's all kinds of stuff that can be
H.
there.
pylori, SIBO.
H. pylori, SIBO. Yeah. So there could be a lot of different underlying factors that could cause some of those symptoms. And I think that what I found to be the most difficult for clients who are facing some of these gut challenges is the time that it can take, not only to identify the issue, but to treat it. I've seen this with SIBO a lot, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, for anyone who's not familiar, and potentially even Candida as well, where you have a treatment protocol and you follow it, but at the end of it, it's not gone. And then for some clients, they have to kind of go at this for quite a while. So have you ever had some of those kinds of challenges crop up for clients? And if so, how do you support them through that, especially if it's taking a long time, longer than they would like it to happen?
Typically, we will start with less intense gut health tests through blood labs, and then we go through the protocol. If that doesn't kind of solve anything, then I'll go for the more expensive, really comprehensive stool test to kind of see, well, we're cleaning this up. Why isn't this fixing? Let's see if there's something else that maybe that we're missing. A lot of my clients are like, I want to be pregnant as of yesterday. And, a lot of the times when they find us, they are kind of exhausted and tired from getting the runaround from a lot of other people. So I understand that feeling of impatience and frustration and feeling feeling defeated. But as part of the process, I think the important thing is to always look at the progress and what you've done, what you've made. We have to look back, look at the progress that we've made so far. And then in addition to that, I'm always trying to kind of seek out additional tests or anything that maybe we can do to kind of uncover something that maybe we haven't uncovered yet. Or if I need to, then I will refer out to a specialist. Then that's where we might go. So yes, I can definitely empathize. It's a challenging process. But at the end of the day, what I always like to remind my clients is that every step in this journey, especially if it's taking longer, is just more of an opportunity for you to get healthier and become this healthy vessel so that you can create a super baby one day. But I know that's hard to hear as well sometimes because people are just frustrated and just want the answers now and want to get pregnant now. But always look back, see the progress you've made. You're becoming a healthier, better version of yourself so that when you do get pregnant, your baby has a much healthier environment.
Well, and as we start wrapping up our conversation today, for someone who tuned into the podcast because we're talking about gut health today and has had some of those symptoms themselves and is concerned, what do I do now? What is the most important thing that you would want her to know?
It's going to be cheesy, but trust your gut. If you have that little gut instinct or feeling that something isn't right, it's so important to voice and express your concern, or it's also okay to look for another practitioner. There's so many of us practitioners out there, and there's so many people who need our help. And I think it's really important to find one that resonates with you. And your gut is always right. Your gut instinct is always right. So don't ignore it.
Well, thank you for that. Why don't you share where the listeners can find you, where they can find you on the socials, all the places?
Yeah. So my Instagram is naturally_Nora. And I also have a podcast myself. I was inspired to create the podcast because, again, I think it's important to empower and educate women in this space. So you can find me at the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep Podcast. And my website is naturallynora, www.naturallynora.ca. It's .ca, not .com. Wanted to put that out there.
Well, and question for prospective FAMM practitioners who have been eyeing up the program. So as a graduate of the program, you've been out of the program now for a few years. Why don't you share with us some of the ways that this program has changed your practice? What is different now when you're working with clients that you were not doing before you took the program?
Cycle charting. That was one of the biggest ones. I was not doing cycle charting before. I didn't understand it. I just knew we had to take temperatures. And then I was like, well, how do you actually interpret this? I love that being able to incorporate that into my practice. First and foremost, it is one piece that really empowers the client. It empowers the individual who is doing it because a lot of us don't understand our cycle in a way, especially when you're trying to conceive, is to really understand and nail down your fertile window. How do I know if I'm actually ovulating in a cycle? I've had a lot of clients work with me and say they're confused if they're ovulating. They don't understand how to figure it out. And so I'm teaching my clients how to actually cycle chart properly and then teaching them how to analyze those charts and really pinpointing their fertile window has been a game changer for my clients in my practice. And another one is also just because we're talking about pregnancy here is the luteal phase. We need to make sure we have a healthy, robust, the whole cycle is important, but the luteal phase is a big one that I like to kind of dive into with my clients on the charts. And so we have our parameters and our markers to understand whether or not luteal phases are healthy. And so diving into the luteal phase as well with my clients helps. I will say I love what I've learned from you, Lisa, because I use that in conjunction with my cycle day 3 blood labs or any other Dutch hormone testing that we do to kind of pull all the pieces together and give you a full picture of what's going on versus just one test or one tool. I would say the biggest one is my clients become the most empowered about their body because unfortunately, we're not taught this at a young age. Unless Lisa is your mom or somebody who's been cycle charting as a mom, like nobody teaches you this. So just to learn it as an individual, it was just mind blowing for myself. But then also being able to incorporate this into the practice is definitely a game changer for me as a practitioner to help my clients understand their bodies and become more body literate. And then also for my clients to kind of take it away with them because you can't unlearn this stuff once you've learned it. You'll now have this tool in your back pocket. And when my clients want to become pregnant again or whatever it might be, they have that information and they know what to do.
Well, that's really helpful because I know that when practitioners are thinking about this program, it's like, well, am I going to be able to actually incorporate it, right? Like, how am I going to kind of balance what I was doing already with this? But it's really nice to hear that it's given you, especially because you're working with fertility clients, a lot of insight into the cycle and to really empower them to understand what's going on. So that's really encouraging. Well, Nora, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and expertise. It's been great to get a chance to connect with you again.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with a friend. You'll find the show notes page for today's episode over at fertilityfriday.com/488. I hope that you enjoyed today's interview with Nora. It was such a treat to have her back on the show and to share a little bit about how she supports her clients with gut-related issues in her practice. In the FAMM program, we delve deeply into how to read the menstrual cycle as a diagnostic tool and how to pair that information with your client's intake and background information so that you can really support your client to improve what's happening. And what's interesting about gut-related issues is that those tend to show up on the chart in different ways for different clients. So for example, gut-related issues can alter cervical mucus observations, sometimes delaying ovulation. I've seen gut-related issues trigger abnormal bleeding in the cycle, and the step-by-step protocols that FAMM practitioners learn in the program help them to interpret virtually anything that you would see happen in the cycle in context to be able to support your client, and also allowing you to use the cycle as a way to track progress. As your client makes improvements and changes, we can see what happens to the cycle, see those improvements in the cycle in real time. And on the flip side, if we make an intervention and the intervention is not helping to the degree that we thought it would, we can also see that on the chart, and that can be a signal for us to adjust. If you're listening to this episode in real time, our next class of FAMM starts next week, October 4th. So this is your last call to join us in this round. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive, FAMMLIVE, to join us while registration is still open. So with that said, I hope you have a wonderful weekend whenever you're tuning into the show. And of course, as always, until next time, be well and happy charting. And that's a wrap. If you're loving the FAMM Practitioner series, then I know you'll love our Fertility Awareness Mastery Mentorship Program. It's a 9-month immersive experience that will completely transform the way you work with clients, allowing you to not only teach fertility awareness to your clients, but to use the menstrual cycle as a vital sign and diagnostic tool in your women's health practice. Our next class starts on October 4th, so there's still time to reserve your spot. Apply now at fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive, and when you apply, you'll have the opportunity to join one of our upcoming information sessions for additional details. There are no other programs like this offered anywhere. Transform your practice in 9 months. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAMMlive to apply now. That's fertilityfriday.com/FAMMLIVE.